it can be really confusing when you look at your account and you see numbers everywhere, especially if you have a lot of the columns on. Maybe you don't even understand what the columns are. We're going to simplify things. We're going to look at the numbers that actually matter in your Google Ads account. The ones we're going to focus on are the ones that you can really go a long ways with just looking at these simple numbers. Instead of looking at everything all at once, you can kind of simplify your life a little bit, especially if you're working with a search campaign. That's what we're going to be focusing on today, is a search campaign, a simple search campaign. And really, it should be simple to a certain degree. At least when we're looking at it, we should have clarity. We should understand what we're looking at and not just staring at a screen, a wall of numbers, and saying, where do I even begin? So the goal is to simplify this. Hopefully you can, take something away and actually be able to look at your account and understand what's happening. So that's what we're going to cover in today's podcast. So if you don't know me, my name is Dan Casson. I'm the owner of Focus Your Ads, and this is the Focus Your Ads podcast. And I've been managing Google Ads for about 7 years. I have managed millions of dollars in spend over these years, and I manage really big accounts, I manage small accounts, I manage everything in between, and I'm still in the trenches. So you're learning from someone that's actually working in Google Ads right now. I'm not just a content creator just creating content. No, I actually work in Google Ads. And if you do want to work with me, you can always jump over to our website, but that's not what this podcast is about. It's going to be about the numbers. So let's dive in and go to the first number here. And that's going to be one that gets talked about quite often. And sometimes people put almost too much emphasis on it, but it is an important number. So we're going to be talking about the click-through rate, or otherwise known as CTR. So if you're ever looking for a number that kind of gives you a quick sense on what's happening, the click-through rate can give you a bit of that sense. But it also comes with it can be tricky to view, because yes, a really high click-through rate is great, but it can also be bad. So that's kind of confusing, right? But the reason, let's take a look at a click-through rate. So if we had maybe an 8% click-through rate, and we have a really relevant ad. So let's say, what could we be doing? We could have, let's do a plumbing service. So we have plumbers near me is our search, and we have an ad that says plumbers near you. And when they click on that, they go to your website. So plumbers near you, that's a pretty relevant keyword or ad copy for that keyword. So you're going to have a decent click-through rate. But let's say that this click-through rate is actually at 30%, 40%, 50%. It's really high. So there could be reasons why your click-through rate is so high, and maybe it's for bad reasons, or maybe you don't want it to be that high, because let's say you're selling a service that's more of a luxury product or service. It's more of a service you tailor to just people that can afford this service. Maybe it's for business owners or something like that. And you know that it's going to cost a lot. So it's not necessarily, you don't want it to appeal to consumers. And because you understand that there's a very, very fine market for this. So there's people that want this service, but there's a lot of people that want something similar that's a lot lower price. That's when a high click-through rate might be a problem. For one, if you have a really good click-through rate, you could get a better click-through rate by appealing to everyone. But sometimes you don't want to appeal to everyone. So you could have, you might want to intentionally lower your click-through rate. So that's just a kind of an idea. So whenever there's a metric and you're like, this is the metric we want to follow, keep in mind there's always the flip side to this metric. So there could be something else on the other side that maybe you don't want this to be so high. You have to really think about it. And that's why it's really hard to just say, oh, here's a checklist, follow this checklist, your ads will be great. It's not always going to be the case. So you have to understand that there's always kind of two sides to every metric. And sometimes you want to have the higher click-through rate. Most times you do. But there are times when, for example, too high could be like, I didn't really go into it, but it could be a bit of a red flag. So maybe there's something in your headline that just matches perfectly, and it's a bit of a red flag. Like maybe people are searching for photos because it's such a unique service that people actually want to just search for it and find photos of this, or they're looking for photos of plumbers, and you happen to be you happen to have some dynamic keyword insertion, and you have a keyword in there that talks about photos, and it's all matching up perfect, and you have this great click-through rate because everyone gets a photo of a plumber, and you happen to be that plumber because they're going to your website to grab your photo, but you're paying a lot of money for this traffic just to go to your website. So again, click-through rate, kind of a double-edged sword. Lots of stuff that we can kind of or lots of things we should be careful of when you're just focused on one metric. So it's really, you want to focus on everything together. And there's always a reason for why you have a low click-through rate or a high click-through rate. So it's understanding it and then taking it that next step to really dive into that metric. And again, it can go either direction. So anyways, enough beating up click-through rate. Let's go on to the next one, which happens to be conversion rate. So conversion rate is also a metric that can have two sides to it, because if I was to run your ads and I wanted to manipulate things, and if you have someone running your ads, they could actually be not intentionally manipulating it, but you could have tons and tons and tons of conversions, and you could have just the most amazing conversion rate. But it really comes down to, what are you actually tracking? And you might be intentionally tracking like a sign up to a form, or maybe just a page view. You might be intentionally tracking that, but that changes your conversion rate. So you have to be careful, especially if you just have someone else managing it and they show you they're getting, 50% conversion rate, and then you look at your leads funnel and you don't see any leads coming in. You have to question, why am I getting no leads, but we're getting so many conversions? And there might be a valid reason for it. And if you're working with someone that they could probably explain that reason, but if they don't, that's a big red flag. But if you're examining your own account and you see a click-through rate that's really high, and you're not getting the leads coming in, then it might be something that you have to look into and see, how are we tracking our leads? Like, is there something broken? Are we maybe when someone fills out the form, if they fill it out again and again, or if they click on something multiple times, it's going to track that multiple times, and you could be tracking duplicate sales. So that's something to keep an eye on. And we're kind of going over the reasons why a high conversion rate might be bad. But normally, if as long as everything's going well, a high conversion rate is a good sign, because it just means that every time you're getting a click, or not every time you're getting a click, but a certain percentage of your clicks are turning into a sale or into a lead. And the higher that number is, means you need less clicks to get a conversion, or less clicks to get a lead form, or less clicks to get a phone call. So what causes a high conversion rate, a low conversion rate? Like, how do you improve this number? How do you get a nice high conversion rate, as long as it's a valid conversion rate? How do you get a nice high conversion rate? Well, it really comes down to your landing page is a big part of this. So having a clear landing page that has a nice call to action and it's easy to navigate, it looks professional, has trust, it has that social proof that says, hey, we have reviews, we do a good job, and someone can actually go there and trust that this is going to, that you're going to actually take care of them and do the service that you've told them you're going to do, or the product, right? But if we're talking about a service business, which most of today's podcast is kind of based on service business, but it does help with e-commerce and that as well. But let's say if you're on your landing page and you see that the colors are all it's super bright and you can't even look at it because it's so bright. I've seen so many websites like this. Or you have stuff all over the website and you don't even know where to look. There's just where do you fill out a form? You don't know, because it's really hard to find the form, for one, or maybe you have to click through to 3 different websites to find or pages to find the form. There's a lot of things that can happen on a website, or it's just a really slow page. So all these things, improving that landing page is going to make a big difference in your conversion rate. And also, if you have a landing page that doesn't match what this person was searching. So if they search for a plumber near me and your page is you're an electrician, well, then you have a bad experience for that customer. They get there and they say, well, this is not even what I wanted. They're going to back out. So you're going to have a really low conversion rate. If, for example, you have emergency plumber and that's your keyword. And now they go to your website and you say, hey, we'll respond within an hour. We'll get things fixed up for you, no problem, or less than an hour. The person on there is going to say, well, this is exactly what I want. And you're going to have a nice high conversion rate. So that keeping everything aligned is really important in Google Ads, all the way from the keyword. And I talked about this in the last episode, but keeping it aligned all the way from the keyword all the way to your landing page. That's super important when it comes to conversion rate and all your other metrics, really. So let's dive into the next one here. We're going to be talking about cost per conversion, which also you could call it CPA. So you'll see that a lot. That's cost per acquisition. But let's just call it cost per conversion for now. This essentially is an efficiency test. So it's a way to really understand how efficient your ads are. So if you have a really high cost per acquisition, you're essentially, it's going to cost you more to get each lead. That's what it means. That's the cost per conversion. So it's really high. It's costing you lots to get each lead. If it's really low, that means your ads are really efficient and it doesn't cost you a whole lot to get a lead. Now, again, this comes back to our conversions before. For example, if you're tracking, depends what you're tracking for your conversions. But if you're just tracking your leads, just tracking your phone calls, and things are set up properly, then you can really trust this metric. But if you don't have things set up properly and you're tracking page views, well, your cost per conversion is going to be just super, super low. So you're going to have to, keep that in mind. And if you have a conversion problem, then that's something you're going to have to fix before you can really trust this metric. But once you can trust this metric, it's a really good one. And it's probably one of the ones that I use almost the most. It's probably one of the ones I watch the most. It's how I determine how efficient my campaigns, how efficient my ad groups are. I'm always watching this one to understand, okay, are we hitting the numbers that we need to be hitting? And this one gives me a really high level view of an ad group or of a campaign. Say, for example, a client, let's say, for example, they can only spend $100 to get a lead. Because we figured out the numbers and it's about $100 per lead. So now I understand I have to stay within that $100. If I can get it to $90, great. If I can get it to $80, better. If I go to $110, well, now we're over. And now we have to find ways to maybe bring that down. So that might be making our ads more efficient. It might be lowering our budget. It might be adjusting our budget, maybe putting our budget in somewhere else that's more efficient. There's lots of ways we can lower it, but that's essentially what the cost per conversion is. It's a way to really tell how much we're spending per conversion and how efficient our ads really are. And there are times when like a low cost per conversion also tells you something. So if we had that same customer and they want to only spend $100 per conversion, now if we're down to $20 per conversion, great. And pat ourselves on the back. We have a really great cost per conversion. But what it's telling us is that we could be spending more. And this should be something that you'd probably communicate with your client. Or if it's you might look at this and say, hey, we could probably spend more. So if we can spend if we are okay with $100 per conversion and we're only spending $20 per conversion, we can push this harder. So now you can start to really push Google Ads a little harder, get more traffic. And as long as you can handle more traffic coming in, handle more jobs, handle more business coming your way, then that's when you can start to push it. So it really gives you an idea on when to push your ads or where to push. If there's an ad group that's just killing it and it has $20 cost per conversion, and again you have that $100 kind of limit, well, maybe that ad group needs more attention. Maybe you need to push more into that ad group or that campaign and pull away from other ones. So it's a really great metric. It's probably, like I said, it's probably my favorite metrics to watch things. It's my favorite metric that kind of keeps everything on track. It's the one that you can always kind of go back to and say, what is our cost per conversion? Okay, now let's go back and dive in again. You can kind of refocus with that one. Whereas if you're looking at other metrics, you might be kind of in the weeds with things. You can come back, look at your cost per acquisition or cost per conversion, and then go back in and say, okay, I know where I need to focus now, and then kind of reacquire what you need to do. So let's move on. We got impression share next. So this one is a bit of it tells you how visible your ads are. So if you want to understand how much you're showing up on a certain keyword, this is the metric you need to look at. And it's essentially this one might be more of like a speedometer, because if your car can only go so fast. So once you're hitting that max, that's 100% search impression share. And if you're at 30%, that might be 30%. So that could be your speed at the time. But you have to understand that the faster you go as well, the more expensive your ads can become, because there's more competition the more you dominate that keyword. So understanding this is it's a good metric to understand. Search impression share really gives you an idea. Like, say, for example, we were talking about the CPA earlier, or the cost per conversion. If we wanted to push a certain keyword or ad group, we can now come back and look at our search impression share and say, do we have room to grow? So we might have maybe it's $20 cost per conversion, but that doesn't mean that we can actually push our ads harder. So now the search impression share kind of gives us that one more piece of the puzzle and says, hey, yeah, we have only 20% search impression share. Oh, we can actually push our ads harder. So now let's get 30%, 40% search impression share. But that's not the only one that we can talk about with search impression share and stuff. There's two more. There's lost IS to rank. So I think it's search lost IS rank, ranks in brackets. And that one tells you essentially if your bids are too low or too high. So it tells you what you're losing to your bids essentially. And it goes with search impression share. And the one other one that goes with this is your budget. So you got rank, you have search impression share, and budget. And if you add all three these together in the same campaign, you'll find that they actually equal 100%, unless you have under 10% on one of them. But even still, you can kind of estimate they should equal up to 100%. So if you have 70% search impression share, you should only have lost 30% in either rank or budget. So it should add up to about 30% loss in one of those. And it's going to tell you, did you lose it in your rank, so your bids, or quality score, different things like that, or did you lose it in your budget? So that's the other one. So it can be either one. So you might have lost it in your rank, you might have lost it in your budget. But the three of those metrics work really well together, and you can essentially say, okay, I have that really great cost per acquisition, and I want to push this ad harder, or I want to push this ad group harder. Now, did I lose that? I have 20% search impression share. So where am I losing that 80%? Is it in rank or budget? Now, it kind of gives you an idea on what to do next, because if it's in rank, well, you're losing it to your bids. So you're not bidding high enough. So now you can say, okay, well, I need to bid higher. So that can be, if you're using automated bidding, it might be adjusting your target CPA, or if you're using manual bidding, you can push your bids higher. And if you're losing it to budget, well, then it means that you bidding higher is not going to help you. In fact, it's going to hurt you, because now you're pushing your loss to rank higher. You're going to lose more to rank or more to budget. It's going to get worse for you if you start pushing your bids higher when you're already losing a lot to budget. What you could do instead is, if you want to now increase this, well, now you have to essentially increase that budget, because you're limited by your budget. So now you increase your budget, and you can actually now take advantage of that better cost per acquisition. Maybe you need to move it into its own campaign and have it in its own budget, so that way you can expand it, because it's such a great cost per acquisition. Now you can actually start to push that even harder by adding it into its own budget. So that's kind of how you deal with that. But these three metrics really work well together: the rank, the budget, and search impression share, because they're meant to go together, and using them together really gives you the kind of the full picture. So we're going to stick with impression share type of metrics here for a second. The next one here is impressions top percentage. So this is how often you're going to show above organic results. Organic results is the free listings. So this is how often you're going to show above that one. So it's a nice one to know. And especially if you have to show up, if you want to be really aggressive with your ads, So you might have to start to bid a little harder to show up more often at the top. Some industries, it's really important to show up almost number one or number two. So this might be one of those ones, or maybe you do something that's really urgent, so you need to be near the top. So that way people don't have to scan through results and stuff like that. So this one shows you how often you're going to show up above. And then we have impression absolute top percentage. So this one here is how often you're going to show above everything. So this is the number one spot. So it's, again, talking about being important to be number one. It's not always important to be number one, but in some industries it might be important, and it might be in yours. So this one tells you if you are in that number one spot. So absolute top percentage is the metric that you can use to kind of determine if you are in the number one spot and how often you're in that number one spot. And the other one, the impressions top percentage, is how often you're above organic. So one's just a little bit higher, one's number one always, and the other one's means you're above organic. So good ones to understand, but not critical, but they are important, especially in some industries. So the next one we're going to go into is quality score. So this one is a bit of a relevance test in a way. It allows you to test essentially, or to see how relevant your ad is to your keyword, how relevant your landing page is to your ad, and really what Google thinks of your landing page, keyword selection, and all that. It really gives you an insight into what Google thinks of the experience the customer is going to get from this. And there's click-through rate as well. So how likely is someone going to click on your ad? These are all important factors in quality score. And quality score actually does have, you can actually look at the quality score for your landing page, your click-through rate, and of your ad relevance. So there's the three different areas. You can actually bring those up and look at them and see how well you're ranking in each of those sections. So it's important to understand. And this metric here is ranked out of 1 out of 10. It's ranked out of 10. So you can get a 1 out of 10, which is the worst, or you get a 10 out of 10, which is very rare. If you're getting anywhere in the like 6 out of 10 or better, that's usually pretty good. And usually your quality score is probably okay. It's a very hard metric to move. There's some things you can do to improve it. And I did talk about that. I believe I talked about that in the last episode, or the episode before that, I'm not sure. But it is a metric that is a little harder to move, but you can move it by just making your ads a little more relevant, picking keywords that are more relevant to your business, and making sure everything lines up all the way from your keywords, all the way to your landing page. And it's really just a way that Google is grading your ads and landing page. So it's always good to have a better quality score, because what happens with a better quality score is usually it means a better ad rank. And I don't mean ad rank as in the one that you see when you're creating your ad. That's a different type of ranking on your ads. No, ad rank, I'm talking about the one that's Google's using in the background to actually rank how you're going to be scored essentially, and how much you're going to pay, what is your cost per click. Because it's just to go back a little bit here into kind of how Google works. Essentially, Google works like an auction. So if you bid on emergency plumber keyword, someone else is bidding on emergency plumber keyword. And if you guys both bid $1 on the same keyword, now Google needs a way to determine who's going to win that bid. And that's how they used to use quality score, but it's not directly used anymore. But it is kind of an insight into how they do this. So let's say you have a 1 out of 10 quality score and he has a 10 out of 10 quality score. Well, automatically that other ad is going to win and it's going to be shown above yours. Now, if you had a 1 out of 10 quality score and you bid, let's say you bid $2 and the other bid had a 10 out of 10 quality score and they bid $1, they might still win over top of your ad because they have essentially a better quality score. Google says it's going to be a better experience for the customer. So they don't have to pay as much. Because you have a bad experience, you have to pay more to show up in that same position. So that's why quality score can be really important. It's not something I'd just focus all my effort on, but it's something to keep in mind. And if you start seeing low quality scores, try to make things more relevant, and you'll see that you can kind of bump these up. And there's other ways. We could have a whole episode on quality score, and we might in the future. So I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast so far. We have more to go, so don't go anywhere. But I did want to mention that if you are at a point where you're just not sure what to do in your Google Ads, or you're struggling, or maybe you just need that extra support, you need someone that's been in Google Ads for 7 years, managing millions, you need them to help you along the way. Well, that's myself. So if you want help from me, go to focusyourads.ca, and I'd be happy to see if I'd be a good fit for you, and we can have a discussion and see if I could help you actually improve your Google Ads by managing them. I don't do any coaching calls at this time, but if that's something you did want to do, send me an email or go to our website again, focusyourads.ca, fill out the form or send me an email, and I'd be happy to chat with you about it. But for the most part, we do management. We have quite a few clients, and we manage their ads for them. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know, focusyourads.ca, and let's get back to it. So next one here, return on ad spend. This is, or as Google calls it, it's going to be cost over conversion value. So it's essentially how much you're going to earn per dollar spent. This is one that I find more often in e-commerce businesses, but you can also get in a service company. So if you only have one service and maybe one fee, so maybe there's no difference, it's just this one fee and that's what you charge, then it's easy to kind of calculate a return on ad spend. And that could just be into your cost per acquisition. You can change it into a return on ad spend and add a value every time that a conversion happens. And now you have ROAS. Right. And this one can be really helpful because it tells you exactly how much you're earning per dollar spent. So if you spend $1 and you earn $10 back, you have a 10x ROAS. Or depending on what part of Google Ads you're looking at, if you're looking at the target ROAS, it'd be 1,000%. Right. So it's important to understand this metric if you're using value. So if you're tracking value in your conversions, then this is the metric you might want to understand the best. Cost per acquisition is a good one, like we were talking about before, but this one is kind of the next step, because if you had, let's say you had $1,000 product and you have $100 product and you sold one of each, now your cost per acquisition is going to be the same, but your return on ad spend is going to be hugely different. So that's when return on ad spend is a really important metric to understand. So if you do e-commerce, then this one's definitely one you want to be watching. So the next one here is an interesting one. It's called optimization score. Now, this is probably one of the most misunderstood metrics out there, and metric is kind of I don't know if I'd call it a metric, but it's there and it looks like a metric and it's right in your face all the time. This one here essentially tells you what Google wants you to improve on your ads. That's it. Google is directing you, saying, this is what we think you should improve. Because we think you should improve it, you lose 10% off your optimization score. That's about it. There's nothing else. Doesn't affect your ads in any way. It's just Google telling you, hey, we like this. We think you should like this too. If you do this, we'll improve your optimization score. I wouldn't worry about this metric. It really doesn't affect your ads in any way. The only reason it affects your ads, or only way it could affect your ads, is if you actually accept these recommendations. And then obviously it's going to have a very big impact on your ads, good or bad, I don't know, but it depends on the recommendation. But this is all tied to the recommendations that are coming into your Google Ads. That's all it is. So if you have a whole bunch of recommendations in your Google Ads and you accept every one of them, you're going to have a really high optimization score. If you ignore all your recommendations, you're going to have a really low optimization score. Does it matter? Not at all. It has no impact on your ads at all. And if it drives you crazy to have a really low optimization score, or you're a Google partner and you have to have a certain optimization score, all you have to do is dismiss them. That's all you have to do. You can dismiss all the recommendations. Your optimization score will go close to 100% and you're good to go. That's how you fix optimization score. But definitely do not chase optimization score. It's something the recommendations, you can certainly look at them and say, do you want to do this one? You want to do this one? But just don't chase the optimization score, because there's really no point. All right. So the next one here is it's not a metric at all. Well, it's not really a metric in the sense that we've been talking about so far, but this one here is important. If you're running Google Ads, search terms, super important. And it's different than keywords. So search terms, you're going to get tons and tons and tons of search terms, but it's one that I would definitely be watching on, a daily basis when I'm first starting a campaign, maybe a weekly basis if I've been running it for a while. The search terms is what people are searching for. They're telling you exactly what they're searching, or Google's telling you exactly what they've searched to find your business. So it's a really important one to look at, and to add negative keywords to get rid of certain ones, and you kind of mold it. But it's definitely one to look at, and you have all these other metrics in your search terms as well. Not all of them, but some of the metrics are in search terms. And it's a really important one to understand exactly how they're typing in, what they're typing in, because keywords is one thing, but if you've ever dealt with a broad match keyword, you know that a keyword means really nothing when it comes to it. Like a broad match, you can type in, plumber, and all of a sudden you're getting stuff for electricians or who knows what. And that's all showing up in the search terms. So that's going to tell you the quality of your traffic coming in. So it's super important. You need to be watching the search terms. All right, so let's wrap up here. So we've went over quite a few metrics, and I think probably my favorite still is cost per acquisition, or cost per conversion, depending on how you say it. Again, that one also with return on ad spend. If I was dealing with e-commerce, that would be my favorite. Those are because they tell you what's happening in your account. The most important ones to kind of keep an eye on the account and keep your account going in the right direction. So anyways, you don't want to really be focused on one metric. Like I mentioned, your click-through rate. You don't want to just focus on click-through rate, because what happens, all of a sudden you're chasing click-through rate and you're not looking at the whole picture. And all of a sudden you have this really high click-through rate, but now you're getting the wrong type of traffic coming in. So focus on the real results. Not on just vanity stats. You want to look at everything together and make sure that you're not just picking one metric and not looking at the rest of it. So anyways, there's a lot we could go into, and I hope you guys learned something out of this. Thanks for listening. If you found it helpful, subscribe, leave a review. I'd love to see some reviews come through on the Apple Podcast. Also, send me a comment if you're on the YouTube side. It's new to the YouTube side of things, and I'd love to see some comments come through. If there's stuff you want to see, if you have questions about Google Ads, send us those questions. You can send it at support@focusyourads.com. That's our email. Send me an email and just say, hey, this is a question for your podcast, or anything like that. I don't mind jumping in and having kind of a Q&A questions type of podcast. So let me know if there's any questions that come up, or you want me to cover a certain topic. Throw it to me and I'd be happy to dive in. Okay. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.